The content of this video game is purely fictional, and Lifetap Studios does not in any way endorse, condone or encourage engaging in any conduct in this video game, presumably going on to include getting drunk off your own homebrewed moonshine and taking to the clouds in a dilapidated seaplane only to crash and burn seconds later on your way to shoot down equally drunk flying beer pirates out of the sky. Hello and welcome to the Brew Barons, the game where you brew and produce your own beers, wines, brandies, ciders, meads, vodkas and any number of Frankenstein mixes of the above in a desperate attempt to keep your independent brewery and small bar afloat in these challenging times. You must keep gossipy locals content and tipsy on your brews, whilst fighting off possibly drunk pirates and seaplanes. Yes, that's right, your enemy is not the average multinational beverage conglomerate, but beer pirates, who you must challenge and fight in your quest to succeed. Your seaplane starts off unloved at best, but we must mend it quickly because you also use your plane to harvest ingredients by shooting them and hoovering them up. Because of course you do, how else are you supposed to do it? Brew Barons is developed and published by Lifetap Studios and should be released in Q1 2023, so hopefully a full game will be available soon. The demo is currently on Steam, and that is what I have been playing at the moment. Now, Lifetap Studios is one of my favourite kinds of studios. It's one of those, it's new, two-man band studios creating original games with unique twists. And it comprises of Rob Hartley and Dickon Yamanaka. I believe it looks as though from their website they've already got lots of experience across quite a wide range of games, and it looks like they've branched out together to create the Brew Barons. Now the platform is PC, but it looks as though there's prospects for it to appear on consoles in the future. It has a really utterly beautiful and detailed art style, reminiscent of Studio Ghibli perhaps, or maybe bright classic cartoons, and it's inspired by 1930s Mediterranean settings. It's very warm, it's bright, it's clean, it's not too fussy. There's always something to explore or to look at. You can focus on points of interest to get extra little tidbits, extra little bits of information. So all those nice pretty lighthouses or the sculptures, they get extra context. There was one that I flew by, a large bell that was set into the side of a hill on one of the islands, and as you focus on it, it gives you a little history. It gives a little bit of lore, talking about what the bell used to be used for. It's very nice. It adds a very nice little extra bit of interest and detail. Let's have a look at the gameplay, shall we? Because after all, I'm sure that's why we're all here. So your main jobs are to mend and upgrade your plane, collect ingredients, brew beverages, design your bottles and bar, and of course see off those pesky pirates. Upgrading the plane seems to provide lots of options, and as the demo seems somewhat limited, I assume that many more customization options will be available later in the full release. You can get a new paint job, you can play around with all sorts of colours, you can add new wings, new engines, storage, all that jazz. Anyway, let's move on and have a look at the big deal that is our very own brewery. Let's go upstairs. You managed to fit a fully functional brewery just on one floor? Well, yes, I actually did, because I am skilled and ridiculous. Let's have a little playthrough of the brewery, shall we? So we can have a look at how we actually create all of our lovely drinks. So first of all, you're going to want to move your ingredients over from your plain inventory to your brewery inventory, and then we can try and work out what we want to make. So there's all sorts of recipes up here. We've got products we've already made. We've got our contracts where we've collected jobs from other brewers or people in the town. But right now what we want to do is actually create. We can't sell anything and we can't make any money unless we actually have drinks to sell. So you want to make sure that you select your ingredients carefully. Don't just sort of mishmash anything together because it will get messy and disgusting. You want to choose ingredients that go well. You can use the recipes to make sure that you are fitting everything together. But for now, we have 100 apples that very sorely need crushing. And so what we're going to do is add every single one of them to our drink. All these nice, very shiny, bouncy apples. I like these. Now, we go through the whole process. Basically, we have to add all our yeast. We have to make it alcoholic. We need to make sure that we make it to the right percentage. There's lots of it's I suppose it's quite nice in a way. I think I did mention that sort of clicking and dragging and things can be a bit cumbersome sometimes, but I do think it makes it a bit more kinetic, I suppose, rather than just clicking. We need to keep adding yeast. I think I got a little bit scaredy cat here, and I was worried about adding far too much yeast, but you just keep going. So if we just ferment, we get more, a lower unit value, and we get a cider. If we ferment and distill, we get a brandy, lower yield, higher unit value. We've gone for fermenting. We're making a nice simple cider. Yay! Presto! We've turned it into a very, very basic 1-star cider. But we have 100 units of it and we need to sell it to someone, so hopefully maybe it can turn into one of those those 2-litre bottles that you get on the supermarket shelf when you've got 2 or 3 litres of cider and you're 16 and this is what you're going for. Maybe we can sell it like that. Hopefully in the future we'll be making slightly nicer ones, but anyway, for now we need to make our cider look presentable. So you can choose whichever bottle caps, bottle shapes, labels, things like that you think most suit your brew. I quite like the one that looks like a trophy, but I think I went for... this one, I think the one I went for looks a bit like a juice bottle, like a squash bottle. But anyway, we're doing it. You can either choose to change the weathering of the bottle, make it sort of scratched, I suppose, well used. Might be good for a rum, like you've just fished it out of the sea. Okay, so now we have our cider and we can sell it. We've got it as product. We can give it to people. We can sell it in our own bar, which is what we're going to do now. And this is the next little step in gameplay: designing and building our own bar and naming it. Unnamed bar is not very catchy, so this building is very multifunctional. We've got a whole entire brewery on one floor and then a whole entire bar on the next floor. You can improve your bar, you can buy things, you can upgrade things, change the design of it. you can the sorts of things you depending on what you put in your bar will sort of affect who might arrive in your bar or what sort of drinks they might like. So this classic one, people prefer vodka, cider, that sort of thing. I ended up going with theme Art Deco because that just personally appeals to me the most, and it looks as though beer and vodka are in a theme Art Deco and people are less likely to drink wine and brandy, so that's interesting. And now we need to think of a good name that communicates the sophisticated and tasteful style of our brand, of our 1-star cider, 1-star supermarket shelf 2-litre bottle cider. I don't know if I think you might be able to change it later, but I thought long and hard about this and ended up going for something that I personally enjoy, the Glorious Sunrise, once I spelled it correctly. Frankie's got some passive-aggressive comments about it though, so she's not very impressed. Okay, now we can sell our cider, transfer it all over. So there we have it, there's our brewery all set up and running, our bar all set up and running, our 1-star cider ready to fly out the door to all those desperate teenagers. Hopefully you saw that. I mean, that's quite a fun process. I imagine it will get more interesting once I collect all sorts of different ingredients, once I get different flavourings, once I shoot some other trees to hoover up more ingredients. But for now, let's move on to our next most exciting thing, which is flying, zooming across the sky in a seaplane. Obviously, apart from the brewing, the other biggest mechanic is flying. And this is where I had the most trouble. Now, first of all, the flying controls was sort of slightly difficult to get the hang of, and it was somewhat hard to see how I could practice flying without losing all of my money constantly, because every time you crash, you have to pay for repairs, even in tutorial mode, and I crashed a lot. I crashed very, very often. I mean, obviously it's a game, who cares? It's not the end of the world, and I don't want to be spoon-fed or anything like that, but it was a bit sort of, I'm still trying to learn. I've crashed, I've lost all my money, I've crashed, I've lost more money, or I've crashed and I can't afford to repair. Then now I don't know what to do. But that's probably just, once I get the hang of the game, I imagine that will stop being an issue. I think my point with this is probably you just need to try and start getting your first brew on nice and early, and getting it out to the bars locally nice and early, so if you're terrible like me, you don't lose all your money on plane repairs. But yeah, so once I did manage to land and take off again without completely burning up, it was actually very wholesome. It's very fun. It was lovely to glide over the islands, viewing all the nice little towns, the villages, all the Zeppelin in the distance, the rolling hills, the little farmsteads, all that good stuff. Other things I liked about the Brew Barons are the details. I've mentioned them a little bit, but there's shadows, there's sunshine bouncing off the windows, all the houses and buildings look a bit different. Birds burst out of the trees when you fly overhead. There's fish in the sea, which for some reason I didn't expect. And one of my favourite things, actually, it's very small, but there are water droplets on the screen that flow in all directions as though you're actually looking through a window being splashed with sea spray. And I thought that was a bit of fun. And the avatar pictures change, so if you're flying, your pilot's hair moves in the wind and all this sort of thing, and I really liked that. Obviously, not absolutely everything can be perfectly wonderful, so as I mentioned earlier, the flying controls didn't come necessarily that easy, and there was a couple of times where the aim for the sort of, you have aims for the gun and aims for the plane, and they didn't really line up, and you ended up pointing in different directions, sort of not on purpose. And then I did manage to get into one pirate fight, and I found, and it was sort of slow, because it's probably just because I'm absolutely shit at seaplane fighting, but it was very, very slow. You couldn't move fast enough, you couldn't turn around fast enough, and it made it sort of difficult to get into the fight. But I assume this is early days and it's still a sort of alpha demo, so I'm sure this will improve in the full game. The other thing is, at the beginning, the pilots were used as the teachers in the tutorial, and then that to me made them come across as a little bit sort of patronising, but I mean that's probably just me. It's not that big of a deal, and I really enjoyed, I liked that every character that I interacted with, they had their own personalities, they had their own goals, they're chatty, they all seemed to be slightly different, so I did enjoy interacting with the pilots and the co-pilot and all the characters that you see around the islands. But those were the only couple of things that I found sort of less than good. Everything else I thought was brilliant. And of course, the concept itself is so exciting. When was the last time you played something which combined exploring, foraging for ingredients, to build a brewery empire whilst fighting over the high seas for control of the skies, wrestling the blue open space from brewing pirates? I mean, it's simulation building combined with tactics, combined with collecting, with crafting, and I just really genuinely enjoyed this mix. There's even the chance to salvage shipwrecks, although unfortunately when I found one, the demo stopped working for a moment and I couldn't find it again afterwards, so it seemed that some of these interactions are randomly instanced. But I did find that really fun. I think that's I'll be excited to see what shipwreck salvage is like. So overall, how do we feel? What do you think? Have you played the demo? Are you interested in the full game? I've pasted a link in the description box to the Lifetap Studios website. And it looks as though they're also working on another game called Waste Haven, which is a road trip through a 1970s wasteland, so that also seems promising. I for one would recommend the Brew Barons. I think you should play the demo. It's available on Steam and off their website, I think, and I will be watching out for the main release. Hopefully it will be within the next few months. I feel that Brew Barons is a gorgeous, sunny game with interesting gameplay and a really promising future. If you enjoy reviews and conversations about MMOs, indie games and demos, as well as playthroughs of fun quests, then please subscribe now. I am also on Twitter at VariegattaT. That's VariegaTat. Thank you very much for watching, and I will see you when I see you. Bye!